Yep. All right, so here we are talking about propellers. Let's talk about pitch. Pitch. Well, the first thing I have to say about pitch is that pitch is often used incorrectly as a synonym, which means the same thing. Synonym for blade angle. Blade angle. But that's not correct, so that's blade angle. So pitch is one thing, blade angle is something else. So what is blade angle? Degrees based on, there we go, plane of rotation, and the angle right there. So that is the blade angle, the angle between those two things right there. That's blade angle. Then there's pitch. And pitch is actually the distance the aircraft moves forward. Well, I'll show you that. So, pitch. So blade angle, I'll write it again here, is the angle between the chord. What's the chord?
From the leading edge to the trailing edge.
Leading edge, trailing edge, trailing edge, leading edge. Either which way, it doesn't matter. It's the angle between the chord, or the flat spot, chord of a blade section and plane of rotation. All right, pitch or blade pitch is the distance the aircraft will move forward, is the distance the aircraft will move forward with one revolution of the prop. You can think of pitch like a screw.
Thread pitch.
Huh?
Like thread pitch?
Yep. Think of pitch like thread pitch. And I guess the reason why it's used incorrectly synonymously is because it makes sense. So if I said I have, well, let's do this real quick. Where's my pitch? There we go, pitch. So we looked at this yesterday. So this over here on my right, your right, yeah, would be a coarse pitch. This would be fine pitch threads, coarse, fine. I would call this high pitch. I would call this low pitch. And if we think of this as high pitch, the propeller is going to go forward more in one revolution. Low pitch, it would go not so far, less. And we could look at the same thing and say, well, what about blade angle? Well, blade angle, if I have a high blade angle, that's kind of like a high pitch, and so it just works. So you could say, well, it's a high blade angle, or you might say it's a high pitch. It's kind of the same thing. So it just gets used interchangeably. So as long as you actually know the difference, yeah.
So it's essentially a high blade angle will lead to a high pitch?
Absolutely. Because you put in a high blade angle, it's going to go further per one revolution, right? I'd say like a corkscrew, but he's not old enough to have ever opened a bottle of wine, so I don't know. What can we...
Still wet behind the ears.
Plus, he's a good boy. He would not partake of the devil's juice there.
Unless you went to church.
Huh? Unless you went to church. Because that was Jesus made water into wine. So, all right. That was a digression. But, all right. So, pitch. We got pitch. So, pitch. Pitch. All right. So then, to repeat myself, pitch refers to how far the aircraft will move. Forward in 1 revolution based on the blade angle at the 75% station. At the 75% station. And technically speaking, that would be geometric pitch. So we have geometric pitch. I'll put that, C, geometric pitch. Geometric pitch, the theoretical distance that it moves forward. So geometric pitch is a purely theoretical distance. I'm not going to write all this. Theoretical distance, an element of a propeller would move forward in 1 revolution if it were moving along a helix having an angle equal to the blade angle. Yeah, well, that's kind of a little wordy. Theoretical distance in inches. In inches.
Kevin, what do you mean by 75% station?
Ah, good question. So we have, it's just where they figured out to do this. Let's take a blade. I don't know, we got a blade here. What the heck. You have all of these different angles all over the place. It's like, well, you pick one. And what they do is they want to pick it at between here and here. That'd be 100%. So 75%. This way. 75%. So take it right there. So that is the spot. And so because that's the standard at 75%, when you see a propeller that says, when it gives you any information, like this is going to move forward 65 inches, that's at that station. So you can do the angle there. You can figure out the actual blade angle of that. And then you can do, well, I'll show you. You can do the math and you can figure out exactly what it is. So I did this, my little 150. It was kind of fun. Let's see. So geometric pitch equals 2 pi times r times tangent of blade angle. Tangent of blade angle. Where r is equal to the radius at the 75% station. So right there, that little r right there. So all right, so if we had a blade angle, we'll say blade angle, and it was blade angle at 20 degrees, and where would I measure that at? 75% station. We'll just say that 75% station happened to be at 30 inches, according to my notes, which would mean that, let me see, so that would mean 80, I could have done this, that means it's an 80-inch prop. 80-inch prop, what's 80? What's 75% of 80?
60. Yes.
Well, then something went wrong, didn't it?
I don't have a calculator with me.
Uh-oh.
60.
Tell me, what is 75% of 80? 60. And I just said it's at station 30. So that's going to give me a wrong answer, because if we have an 80-inch prop, that is wingtip to wingtip. Prop is wingtip to wingtip. But we can't do wingtip to wingtip because
That's not 75%.
that's the picture one right right there, right there. Okay, so if this was an 80-inch prop, 80 inches from right here to right here, that's 80 inches, 80 inches. Well, I need the 75% station, which is going to be here, and this is also going to have a 75% station there. So it's 80 divided by 2 equals 40 times 75%, which is 0.75, which should give us 30 inches. So we're going to measure from here to there, 30 inches. So it's that station. That's the 75% station. Follow? Because that is going to be on the test. Something, I don't remember what question it is. There's something I ask you, and that's the thing you've got to know. That you better divide by 2. All right, so what did I have here? So we have a blade angle of 20 degrees at the 30-inch station. We know how to get the 30-inch now. So let's see. So that'd be 2 pi times, what is R? 30 inches.
Oh, that's what I said.
It was so close. Times the tangent of the blade angle. So if we had a calculator, which you don't have, and we figure out what tangent of 20, what's tangent of blade angle, that's the tangent of 20, we would get some number. And what do you suppose that number might be? Arlene's got a calculator. What is it? Boom.
0.364.
0.364. 0.364. And how did you get that?
Typed in tan 20.
Typed in tan and then hit the number 20. Did you have to hit equals?
Yeah.
You had to hit equals too. Tan, then 20, then equal. And what did you get, Nick?
0.3639.
0.36397 probably, huh? Well, you rounded it for me. So, all right. So 2 times pi times 30 times all that equals a geometric pitch of... Oh, you guys are just a lively group.
612.
Thank you. 68.6.
612.
We'll stop it there. And that is inches pitch. Inches. So what does that mean if I have a 20 degree blade angle at the 30-inch station?
Your theoretical movement per one revolution is 68.61 inches.
Thank you. So every time that propeller goes around one time, the plane will move forward how far?
68.61.
Right about 6 feet. And so then we could take it one step further out on my calculator. Well, what if we're doing 2,400 RPM? There you go, 160, a whole bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
And then we could do some more maths and figure out how far that is per hour. And then we'd figure out our distance and all kinds of stuff. But I'm not going to make you do all that. So but for fun, you can do that. And all right, so that's our geometric pitch. The distance it would move forward, in theory, one revolution. How far does it move forward one revolution if you have the feet on the brakes?
Hopefully nothing.
Depends on how strong the engine is and how strong the brakes are. All right, so we have geometric pitch, then we have effective pitch.
Can I have a question?
Yes,
So is that formula different from the formula you mentioned in the project sheet?
I don't know.
Only by the fact.
Oh,
What I put in the project sheet.
By
Huh?
yeah, 5 times there.
Oh. So it might be slightly different.
2 are near the same.
All right, effective pitch. You can use either one. You should get the same answer because it's maths. Effective pitch, that is the actual distance the airplane moves. During one revolution. And let's see, effective pitch, EP can range from 0. Well, how can you have an effective pitch of 0?
Feet on the brakes.
Feet are on the brakes. To about 85%. So we've got some losses right there. There's somebody's heartbeat. Can I move it?
Not yet. Thank you.
Now?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
I did anyway. I'm supposed to say now, then move it, not move it now. All right. The difference between the two is slip. Slip, that is the difference between geometric pitch and the effective pitch. So geometric pitch minus effective pitch equals slip. This is very obnoxious.
Pretty sure that's Toby.
Is it Toby? If you don't like it, buy your own car and start driving. Okay.
Maybe not like that.
Nah, she's a good kid.
My couch is plenty comfortable.
Not my wife. No, it's not my daughter. Well, hell no, I wouldn't say it to my wife. I'm not stupid. I mean, I am, but not that dumb. All right. Aerodynamic forces. Let's look at the picture first. Let's see, we covered all that. Look at all that stuff we covered that you know about. That's kind of the same slide. Low pitch, small blade angle. See, same thing. Low pitch, small blade angle. What? Low pitch, small blade angle. Oh, yeah. So it's got to turn more to go that distance. And that's a confusing slide there for a minute. All right. Slip. There we go. Nice little picture. It's in your textbook, but you guys never noticed that. Oh, yeah, there's a reason why it's like this. I'm like, why would I put that? All right, so I put this slide sideways for a really good reason. Even though it doesn't seem to fit on here very well. There we go. Now it's on there. Oh, I know. Just I'll edit this part out. Damn it. Yeah, that's going to be beautiful right there. All right, we're getting somewhere now. Now let's do this one. Crop that. Let's see if we go up like that. Oh, that's just perfect. And now that's going to work out so well. Okay. The reason why I did that is because this right here doesn't make sense when it's facing up. It's like, why would you do that? Let's put it in a plane that makes sense right here. Otherwise, it's sideways to me. So, all right. So we have aerodynamic forces working on a propeller. And as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 forces that happen along here. And I'll write this down, but we'll just look at the pictures and go around them. So the first one over here, kind of in the middle, A, centrifugal force. This one is the greatest force acting on a propeller. It wants to rip it in two. Now, we're looking at fixed pitch propellers here, but think about props that are actually constant speed, like this one over here, where you have these blades trying to rip themselves out of the hub. So there's a tremendous amount of stress on that hub as those blades are trying to leave. And let's see here. May exceed 7,500 times the weight of the blade. Try and pick that damn thing up. I carried it over here yesterday. That was a mistake and a half. So, all right, centrifugal force, the greatest force, tries to rip the blades away from the hub. Torque bending force causes the blades to kind of bend backwards a little bit as it goes around. If that makes sense to you, as the propeller spinning around, it kind of tends to go around from the torque and also some of the air pressure and stuff hitting on it. Then we have the thrust bending force. It's trying to pull the airplane forward, so the prop is sort of leading that charge there and wants to bend forward a little bit. These forces are they're there, and they cause fatigue in the propeller. There's a lot of really weird things that go on with propellers. You'd think like a fixed pitch propeller. It's like, well, never have to overhaul the fixed pitch propeller. What's to overhaul? There's no moving parts. It's just you bolt it on and it goes in a circle. As long as you're not picking up rocks, it lasts forever. But it doesn't. You have overhaul periods on them. They build up stresses in them, and then they have to polish them down. They like take off a surface layer. They say it removes the surface stresses that get built into it. It's like all this kind of weirdness. And those are those three right there. Now these two over here, these are going to be extremely important to us as we start talking about constant speed propellers, because A, B, and C don't do anything for us. And to a large degree, D doesn't either. But E is something that plays a vital role in how propellers actually operate. And so I put it on its side so that we're actually looking at a propeller. This is the hub, and instead of going like this, it's actually spinning this way. So that's why I did it that way. So, all right, we'll come down here. We'll go to E. A, B, C, D. We'll go to D. So D, aerodynamic twisting force. It's nothing more than thinking about this as a wing. And so as a wing, you're going to have a high pressure down here and a low pressure here. And because of the way the center of pressure is against the center of rotation, it makes that blade want to go to a high blade angle. Now, a word that we're going to have to get used to is called feather, feathering a propeller. When you have a constant speed, when you have a twin engine aircraft, because almost all twin engine aircraft, I can only think of two that don't have constant speed props. It's probably more, but I'm only thinking two. So when you have a twin engine aircraft, it's imperative that when one engine fails, you can feather the propeller. And feathering the propeller means, the propeller's spinning like in this rotation. The blade actually rotates so it's facing into the wind. So if it was it'd be a flat paddle trying to go, which would not be well. But you stop the engine, and then the blade is this way into the wind, and that keeps it from windmilling. Because if you have an engine that's going away on you, let's say you look over and your oil pressure's dropping to zero. Well, if you can't shut that propeller down, that propeller is going to continue to windmill that engine running with no oil, which will eventually cause it to seize up, and that prop is going to stop in a windmilling fashion, which causes tremendous amount of drag, which will cause the airplane to yaw and probably lose control. So you have to feather that engine. So I bring all that up to say, get used to towards feather. When I say towards feather, know what that means. That's going towards a high blade angle. Sometimes it's easier to say towards feather, towards high blade angle. Follow everybody? Okay, or towards feather. And then flat would be this way. So like zero, it's a low pitch, high pitch, towards feather, high pitch. Everybody with me on that?
Yeah.
All right, it's going to be real important that you when I'm talking, that I can just say that. So
Yeah, if it's flat, it'll cause it to continue to spin, which you don't want.
you don't want.
It'll be a giant stop sign, essentially.
Yeah. I forget the drag, how much drag it creates. Oh, I want to say that I read it creates a drag actually equal to the size of the disc that it creates, which is like, wow. Okay, so D, this aerodynamic twisting force causes the propeller, if left on its own, to go towards a feather. And that's just the aerodynamic forces working on the raw blade, no other considerations whatsoever. All right, but the greatest force, the two greatest forces of all five are centrifugal forces. So A, we got the blades trying to depart company, which we don't want to happen. And we just build the prop so that it won't come apart. But this centrifugal twisting force is we have this blade here turning around in a circle, spinning, And that blade on that particular prop is allowed to rotate in the hub. That's how it works. If no other force, or if we just put the blades in with some bearings and spun it, it would always do this. Because the centrifugal twisting force will always pull it in a line like this. You don't believe me? Put your hands like this and spin around. They kind of go like that.
Do it.
It wouldn't make any sense if I did it. You'd be like,
Spin for us.
I don't get paid that much. You have to pause it. But actually, if we took something similar to that blade, and this I would do in here, I'd start swinging it around in here, and let you guys all duck every time it came around. All right, but if we put that blade on a rope and swung it around, it would actually go towards this centrifugal twisting way if we did it correctly. So it will go towards a flat or low pitch. And while we're talking about pitches, even though we're still talking a lot about fixed pitch, we need to get used to how things work. There is the blue knob in the airplane, although older airplanes did have black, which is confusing. It's black, black, red. But it's the prop control. If the prop control is all the way forward, I used to have a poster right over there, so I was pointing at. If the prop knob is all the way forward, that is, it is high RPM. If I push the throttle in, what happens to the RPM? No, just on any engine.
How's that?
The RPM goes, so that is high RPM.
Yes.
If I push the black knob in, knob next to it, blue one. If I push that in, it's also high RPM, fast. Everything goes fast. Push the red knob in is full rich. All right, so throttle all the way in, go fast. Blue knob all the way in, go fast. Higher RPM. If I pull the blue knob out, the prop control knob, it slows down the RPM. It does so by increasing the pitch. So high pitch, low pitch. But it's not labeled that in the aircraft. It's labeled high RPM, low RPM. High RPM is low pitch. Low RPM is high pitch. Got that? Okay. Got to keep that stuff straight. All right, aerodynamic forces. It should just be forces, really. Yeah, it's just forces. I don't know why aerodynamic. Forces. All right, so first one is centrifugal. Remember, there's two centrifugals. There's just centrifugal and then centrifugal twisting force. Centrifugal force, it is the force that tends to throw the blades away from the hubs. From the hub. It causes stretching of the blades. We have very large micrometers, and we will take them and we'll put them from one tip to the other. We have to measure. You're not going to buy this.
No.
He's already like telling me.
I wasn't buying it either anyways.
If the blade gets too long, you have to file off the head. All right, but it causes stretching of the blades. All right, causes stretching of the blades. The greatest force acting is the greatest force acting on the prop. May exceed 7,500 times the weight of the blade. And blades are really stinking heavy. All right, torque bending force. Let's see. Due to air resistance, tends to bend blades in a direction opposite rotation. So if you have a twin engine aircraft, we have one engine turns to the right and one turns to the left. Every 100 hours, swap your props over. So it bends it back the other way. That's just bullshit too.
My meter was going, but wasn't sure.
The props are pitched different, so that wouldn't work. That would back up, I guess.
On single engine, you just
Huh?
flip the prop.
Yeah, that was two pressure drops.
Yeah.
Again, on a single engine, you just flip the prop around.
Yeah. So for a while, the blunt end goes forward and then the sharp
Rotate-
end goes forward
rotate
for a
your
while.
prop.
Yeah, rotate your take your prop end for rotation. Yeah, take them rotation balance. All right. C, thrust bending force. This is the same force you get when you pull on your propeller on the ground. Don't do it. The thrust load that tends to bend blades forward. As the aircraft is pulled through the air. Aerodynamic twisting force. Tends to twist the blade toward what?
Feather.
Towards feather. Very good. Is that high or low blade angle?
High pitch.
Toward a high blade angle or pitch. And E, centrifugal twisting force. Centrifugal twisting force. And that's a lot to say, and we're going to talk a lot about it. So I'm just calling that CTF, centrifugal twisting force.
But Kevin,
Yeah.
wouldn't it tend to twist it towards a low blade angle, towards flat?
No, you got it backwards.
Did I write it backwards?
No, he has it backwards. Flat is when it's up and down.
Wait a minute. No, yeah. Aerodynamic twisting force. This way.
When it's, that was the example you said when you're spinning it?
That's centrifugal. Centrifugal is going to make it go
Got it.
this way.
Sorry, my bad.
Because I was twisting it this way. I should have twisted it this way. That's why I had to turn that other drawing sideways. Because, all right, centrifugal twisting force. Let me see. A force that tends to move the blade toward. Force that tends to move the blade or twist the blade toward a low blade angle. Let's see. CTF is greater than aerodynamic twisting force. So aerodynamic twisting force is really whatever. You lose. Centrifugal always wins.
Wins as in the force is greater.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because one's making it go to low angle and the other one's making it go to high. And centrifugal always wins. So, spoiler alert.
Not airworthy anymore.
Okay, constant speed propellers. On a twin. This goes on a twin, right? Two engines. Okay. All right, so it goes on a twin. And so we need it to feather should we have a problem. So left to its own, centrifugal twisting force would make it go towards feather or away from feather?
Away from feather.
Away from feather. So what they do is they put these counterweights up here in this position. So this counterweight twisting force overrides the centrifugal twisting force of the blade. So if you lose oil pressure in a twin engine aircraft, you need the centrifugal twisting force of the counterweights to drive this thing. These counterweights are going to come over to here because they want to be in line. And so it's going to drive it that way. So we use the centrifugal twisting force of the counterweights to drive this to a feather. Otherwise, you wouldn't get it to feather. You'd have to have oil pressure or some pressure to make you go to feather. Well, if you just lost your oil pressure, well, that's a problem. So there's a couple ways to do it. We'll talk about all those as we get to that point. But whenever you see counterweights like that, that's what those counterweights are doing. They're counteracting the centrifugal twisting force of the blade, and they're using the counterweight to do the CTF.
That's a poor description.
The way I just said?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to explain that prop is rotating this way, so the weight will want to sling out. Can you move those?
You want me to do it this way? All right. So it's rotating that way.
So it is,
That's better,
it is
yeah.
rotating, so it's going to sling those out in the rotation.
So without these weights, take them off, throw them away. Then this centrifugal twisting force will make the blades go flat.
Correct.
Well, I don't want it to go flat. So what I need to do is, and I'm going to make sure, so the airplane's headed that way. And so here's the leading edge. And so as,
The airplane's going this way?
this way.
Going on the prop.
This is the rear prop.
Rear.
Oh,
This
got
is-
you.
I knew I should have brought this one. This is the rear prop of a twin engine aircraft. So we're flying this way. That's the rear engine. Rear engine. And when this needs to go to feather,
That way.
then what's going to happen is, right, without the counterweights, lose oil pressure, blades are going to go this way.
Correct.
That's bad. But now if we lose oil pressure and release the pressure on it and let the prop do what it wants to do, these counterweights need to be here, right? The centrifugal twisting force of these counterweights is going to bring it down in here. When those counterweights then roll under, it's going to cause this blade to go this way. So the blade's going to be into the wind that way. But that's for another week.
Constant speed.
Beautiful, beautiful.
You can also tell that this is a feathering propeller by how tall that is. For another week. All right. Tip speed. Tip speed is the principal limiting factor for prop efficiency. Is the principal limiting factor for prop efficiency. I've watched some really cool engineering videos and various things about supersonic pressure waves and what happens. So the simple thing to say is, well, the tip is going the fastest, right?
Yes.
I hope everybody knows that. Miles per hour in a circle wise. And when the tip speeds get supersonic, you're going to set up supersonic pressure waves in front of this, and then you could say, well, you're just going to lose efficiency. Well, that would be nice if that was all that happens. It sets up pressure waves and stresses in the prop that are just phenomenal when you exceed the get transonic with the props. So very, very bad. So to say that they become less efficient is a bit of an understatement. So we want to stay away from that because it sets up really bad stresses in a prop. If you lose even a small fraction of the prop tip, you will have a catastrophic emergency. You don't want that. And a blade that's trying to depart its hub at 7,000 or 500 times its own weight, it's just things can get really bad really fast. So you do not want those tip speeds to go transonic on you. They have to be subsonic. So excessive speed causes flutter and vibration. I would love to find, and I can't find it, so if anybody has free time on your hand, I'm sure it's on YouTube by now. You talk about flutter of control surfaces, which is not a class I teach. Maybe Phil talked about it in aerodynamics, or they'll talk about it in second year when you get into balancing control surfaces. Because there's this thing called flutter that will happen with control surfaces, and I just couldn't picture it. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, how can you have something that's got a solid hinge point that just goes up and down? How can putting weights on one end of it do something to it? And what I saw, I think it was a V-tail Bonanza or some plane, and they had set up high-speed cameras on this plane a long time ago, and they induced a flutter in the control surfaces, and it's the most scary thing you'll ever see in an aircraft, to see the control surfaces start to oscillate and then depart the aircraft, which is exactly what happens to them. So when we talk about flutter, it's a big deal. I mean, if something like this will look fluid, and it'll start waving back and forth like it's just a wet noodle or something. It's like, whoa. So, yeah, bad. Let me see. So tip speed must be below speed of sound. Although I have heard some people say that you can, some airplanes, I mean, you just hear the prop just cracking when they're taking off, and they say, oh yeah, the tips are supersonic. Maybe that's true. I don't know. 761 miles per hour at sea level. Not that that matters because you're not measuring a prop like that. So how do we prevent tips from exceeding what's that? Sonic speed.
So paint 'em white.
Paint them white?
Yeah.
Well, how's that going to help slow it down?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't have a story? You have a story ready.
Yeah, all the paint slips are mixed.
We painted our prop tips yellow, so.
Yeah, okay. Now, see, he had one. He's like, oh, it's extra friction. That's friction tape, really. It just slows it down, so I figure out. So,
It's more coarse.
if this engine had 10 more horsepower, you would have known that. They would have had a third stripe on here. By the way, what's incredibly different about this propeller paint job?
It's 2 stripes.
2 stripes on both sides. You'd never see that on a propeller up front. The face has to be flat black, completely flat. No different colors. You'll never see anything other than flat black. Why will you never see anything other than flat black and never, ever, ever see a stripe? Flicker vertigo. Called flicker vertigo. So, I had a...
Have to do with the pilot. Has a
So, yeah, the pilot explained this to me because he ran his aircraft through a barbed wire fence and scratched the hell out of it. And he called me up. Hey, on your way home, could you bring some files? I got a nick in my prop. You know, show up to his hangar. I'm just like, what the hell happened, man? Yeah, he ran through a barbed wire fence. He's a crop duster. And flying awful low, I guess. But anyway, he goes, yeah, you know, by the time I got back, man, I was so sick to my stomach from flicker vertigo. I'm like, what? He goes, you don't know what that is? I'm like, I don't know what that is. And so his story, back in the olden days, and this is true. What he told me is true. The story I'm telling you is what he told me for real. I'm not making this part up. All right. So back when they first came out with movies, you know, they flickered. And it took them a while to you guys remember, we were all there together. They flickered at a certain rate and people got sick. I think they had to experiment with how fast movies flashed before they figured out.
Between different ticks. Or
Yeah, between the,
frames.
because, you know, film is actually just
Frames. Yeah.
frames, yeah. So they had to figure that out. So I guess people got sick at first until they figured out the frame rate that made you not sick. So, yeah.
Were you talking the same thing about the lights and how fast they?
Probably, yeah, yeah.
60.
If they didn't flash at a certain rate, we'd notice it. It makes you sick. So anyway, because his blade had a bunch of paint missing, it flicked at him at a certain rate and made him very sick in the airplane. He got vertigo from it. So I had to get the plane down the ground. So, yes, he painted black.
And the reason they can get away with that is because it's a rear
Yes, because it's a rear plane.
jet.
It's behind you. You can't see this thing when you're in the aircraft.
I was just gonna say something.
It's unless you have another pilot qualified.
All right. So to prevent tips from exceeding sonic speed, what do we do? Well, we have to limit RPM. Well, what if you want to turn the engine faster? Well, we can gear the engine. In other words, a prop reduction gear. So the engine's going to turn much faster and the prop's going to turn much slower. Or shorten the prop. If you bring the tips in, then they don't move as fast. It's true. It's all part of the design, not something you're going to do in the field.
The service